I survived the hospital, but I didn't survive my own home. After almost a month fighting to stay alive, I came back to the house I built with my life savings, and my son told me I was no longer welcome inside. He said the house was no longer mine. I remember standing there with my hospital bag still in my hand, weak, thinner, slower, and staring at a door I had opened for decades. But this time, someone else answered. I didn't see my son first. I saw strangers sitting on my couch, strangers laughing in my living room, strangers wearing shoes on my floors, his wife's family, and then my son looked at me. Not with guilt, but with certainty. He said, "Mom, it's no longer your house. Don't come in." At that moment, they thought I was defeated. A sick woman, an old woman, a woman who would cry, beg, or disappear. They were wrong, because what they didn't know was that while I lay in that hospital bed, something else survived with me. The truth. They didn't know what I had signed. They didn't understand what I hadn't signed. And they never asked the one question that would have saved them. Who really owns this house? 1 week later, when the doorbell rang and the papers were opened, my son couldn't speak. His wife sat down, and her family realized they had built their future on a lie. If you are a woman who has ever trusted your children with too much, signed something because you were tired, or stayed silent because you were raised to be nice, this story is for you. This is not a story about screaming or revenge fueled by anger. This is a story about patience, about wisdom, and about what happens when a woman they underestimated decides to stop explaining herself. Stay with me. That house didn't come from luck. It didn't come from inheritance, and it certainly didn't come from my son. It came from years of choosing responsibility over comfort and silence over applause. When I first bought that house, it was nothing special. 2 small bedrooms, a tired roof, walls that held the cold in winter and the heat in summer. But it was mine. I worked jobs that never came with titles. I saved money that was never meant for savings. I said no to dresses, trips, and rest because the house came first. That house was my retirement plan before I even knew what retirement was. My husband and I argued in that kitchen. We made peace in that kitchen. We raised our son in those rooms, watched him learn to walk on those floors. When my husband passed, that house became more than shelter. It became proof that I had survived. Every woman my age understands this. A house is not just walls, it's safety, it's dignity. It's the one place the world can't push you out of. Or so I believed. I kept every document, every receipt, every paper with my name on it. Not because I distrusted my family, but because I understood something many women learn too late. Ownership is only real when it's protected. My son knew that house. He knew what it cost me. He knew the nights I stayed awake worrying about payments, and because he was my child, I never imagined I would need protection from him. But houses remember things. They remember who paid the price, and they never forget whose name was written first. That detail would matter later. So when illness came for me, when my body slowed and my strength failed, I believed my home was the one thing I didn't need to worry about. I was wrong. Because while I was fighting to stay alive, someone else was making plans in my absence. There are many people in life you learn not to trust. Children are not supposed to be on that list. My son was the one person I believed would never confuse gratitude with entitlement. He wasn't a difficult child. He was quiet, observant, the kind who watched before he spoke. When his father died, he tried to be strong for me, and I let him. I didn't just raise him. I protected him from fear, from debt, from uncertainty. When he needed help, I gave it. Not as a loan, but as a mother. I paid tuition without keeping count. I covered rent when he was short. I signed papers when he said, "Mom, it's just for convenience." Convenience is a dangerous word when love is involved. When he married, things changed. But not all at once. It was small things first. He started speaking for me instead of to me, answering questions I hadn't finished asking. He began saying things like, "You don't need to worry about that anymore," or "Let me handle it." I thought it was care. I didn't recognize control. Visits became shorter. Phone calls became rushed. And somewhere in between, respect became optional. Still, I defended him. Because that's what mothers do. When I got sick, he stepped forward quickly. Too quickly. He took my keys. He took my documents. He said he would keep things in order until I recovered. And I let him. I don't blame illness alone. I blame certainty. The certainty that a son raised with love could never use that love as leverage. I didn't know it then, but that was the moment the balance changed, from mother and son to owner and occupant. By the time I realized trust had turned into access, it was already being used. Illness doesn't announce itself loudly. It starts with small betrayals, fatigue that sleep doesn't fix, pain you learn to ignore. I told myself I would rest after one more week. Then one morning, my legs didn't feel like mine. My chest felt tight. And I realized this was no longer something I could manage alone. The ambulance came faster than I expected. Hospitals take away more than your clothes. They take away your independence. Your name becomes a wristband. Your time becomes a schedule someone else controls. Days blurred into weeks. Almost a month passed. Monitors beeping, curtains closing, opening again. I learned how lonely recovery can be. My son visited often at first. He spoke to nurses. He asked questions I was too tired to ask. He told me not to worry about the house. He said he was taking care of everything. One afternoon, he brought papers to my bedside. He said they were just temporary authorizations. Things hospitals require when someone might need help. I trusted the voice, not the words. My hand shook. Not from fear, from weakness. I didn't read carefully. I didn't ask questions. I signed because I believed love was still protection. Medication makes the world softer. Edges blur, urgency disappears. And that's when decisions are most dangerous. Looking back, I understand now that was the moment my illness stopped being physical. It became strategic. What I didn't know was that while I was fighting to breathe, someone else was learning how to speak for me. And once that door opens, it's very hard to close. By the time I was strong enough to stand again, decisions had already been made in my name. The day I was discharged, I expected relief, fresh air, my own bed. Silence. No one prepares you for the fear of returning home after illness. You hope everything stayed exactly where you left it. My son drove me. He talked about traffic, about work, about nothing important. I noticed he didn't ask how I felt. When we pulled into the driveway, something felt wrong. There was another car parked where mine usually sat. I told myself not to overthink it. I reached for my keys out of habit. My son stopped me. He said, "Wait, let me open it." The smell hit me first. Food I hadn't cooked, voices I didn't recognize. Laughter. There were people sitting in my living room, not guests, not visitors. They were settled, shoes placed neatly by the door. Not mine. Children's backpacks by the wall. My framed photos moved to one side. Someone else had decided where my memories belonged. Then I recognized them. His wife's family, eating, talking, living. I turned to my son, waiting for an explanation. He didn't avoid my eyes. That was what frightened me most. He said calmly, "Mom, you can't stay here anymore." I asked him what he meant. He said, "The house isn't yours now." I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I felt something colder than anger. His wife stood behind him. Her family watched. No one offered me a chair. My bag was placed by the door. Already packed. That was when I understood. This wasn't sudden. This had been planned. I picked up my bag. I looked at my son one last time and said nothing. Because when people show you who they've become, words are unnecessary. Humiliation doesn't always come with shouting. Sometimes it arrives politely. They believed they were being reasonable. My son said I should rest somewhere else for now, as if homes are interchangeable. He offered me a small room at a friend's place, not as an apology, but as a solution. They spoke about me as if I weren't present, as if I were a problem being managed. His wife explained to her family that I was confused. Sick women are easily dismissed. Neighbors stopped asking questions. Friends didn't want to get involved. I became inconvenient. My son told me I should be grateful they were letting me take my things. He said I needed less responsibility now, that I should focus on my health. They called it concern, but concern doesn't come with conditions, and care doesn't remove dignity. Something changed in me during those days. I stopped trying to explain. I stopped trying to be understood. Instead, I listened carefully to what they said, and what they assumed I didn't know. They believed humiliation would break me. They didn't realize it was clarifying. Because when people stop respecting you, they also stop guarding themselves. And that's when the truth begins to surface. I let them believe I was defeated. When everything noisy was taken away, the house, the routine, the illusion of family, there was finally silence. And silence has a way of returning your mind to you. I asked for my papers back. Not angrily, not urgently. I said I wanted them to feel useful again, to keep my hands busy while I recovered. My son didn't hesitate. He handed me a folder as if it meant nothing. That was his first mistake. I've handled documents my whole life. Bills, agreements, receipts, and there it was. A date that didn't match my memory. The signature was mine, but the timing wasn't. I was heavily medicated that day, barely conscious. There was no witness listed, no proper notarization, just assumptions. That's when I felt it, not anger, but clarity. They hadn't taken my house. They had only tried. I didn't call my son. I didn't confront his wife. I made tea. And I kept reading, because the more I read, the more I realized something extraordinary. They believed paperwork was power. They forgot about the law. Revenge doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it puts on comfortable shoes and walks quietly. I understood something important then. If I confronted them too early, they would hide their mistakes. I didn't go to friends. I didn't go to family. I went to someone who had no emotions in the matter. Only facts. The lawyer listened without interrupting. He asked when I signed the documents, what medication I was on, whether anyone witnessed it. Each question peeled something open. Then he said a phrase I will never forget: elder financial abuse. He explained how often it happens, how illness creates opportunity, how trust becomes access, and how the law does not look kindly on people who exploit vulnerability. He told me plainly, the transfer wasn't valid. No proper consent, no notarization, no lawful authority. I didn't feel victorious. I felt steady. I asked him one question. Should I tell them now? He shook his head. Not yet. He said people reveal more when they believe they've won. And he was right. We decided to wait. To let them settle in. To let them spend money. To let them speak freely. That was the moment the balance shifted back. They were living in my house, but I was holding the truth. And the longer they stayed comfortable, the harder the fall would be. People reveal their true nature when they believe they are safe. So I gave them that belief. My son stopped checking on me as often. Calls became shorter. His tone became lighter. Relief sounds like confidence. They began changing the house. New paint, new furniture, renovations no one asked my permission for. They treated it like an inheritance already claimed. They talked openly about costs, about investments. They believed spending money made ownership permanent. His wife's family invited guests. They spoke proudly about their new home. I heard it from neighbors. I didn't correct them, because lies grow louder. when they think no one is listening. Every receipt they sent, every message, every careless word, it all mattered. My son told me I should be grateful he was managing things responsibly. I thanked him. Not because I meant it, but because gratitude disarms people. It makes them careless. I shared everything with my lawyer. He smiled once. "They're doing our work for us," he said. That was when I knew. They weren't just living in my house. They were documenting their own downfall. All that remained was choosing the right day to knock. The day everything changed didn't feel dramatic. It felt ordinary. That's how real consequences arrive. It was a weekday morning. They were home, comfortable, unprepared. They believed the matter was settled. The doorbell rang. Not urgently, not aggressively, professionally. Two people stood outside, one holding documents, the other holding authority. They asked for the occupants of the house. My son read the first page twice. His wife stopped smiling. The words were simple: unauthorized transfer, invalid consent, elder financial exploitation. No one raised their voice. There was no shouting, only the sound of reality settling in. My son looked around the room at the furniture, the renovations, the people he had promised security. None of it protected him. They asked where I was. That was when I stepped forward. I didn't look weak. I didn't look angry. I looked prepared. I said, "This is my house." And for the first time, no one argued. Confrontation doesn't have to be loud to be final. Sometimes, the quietest voice carries the heaviest truth. My son stood in front of me, searching my face for something: anger, tears, permission to argue. I gave him none of it. He said my name the way he used to when he was a child, as if that would soften what he had done. It didn't. I told him I wasn't there to punish him. I was there to correct a mistake. I explained, slowly, clearly, that love is not ownership, and care does not include control. I told him illness is not consent. His wife didn't speak. Her family avoided my eyes. They understood now. This was never theirs. I said they would leave the house. Not immediately, not cruelly, but lawfully. I looked at my son and said, "You didn't lose a house today. You lost my protection." There was nothing left to debate, only consequences. And for the first time in weeks, I slept without fear. When the house became quiet again, I didn't rush to fill it. Silence felt earned. I walked through each room slowly, not to check for damage, but to remember myself. I opened windows, let the air change. I changed the locks, updated every document, added legal protections I should have had before, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. My son called once. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He asked what would happen next. I told him the truth. Trust doesn't reset just because blood exists. He lost more than access to a house. He lost certainty. People call this revenge. I don't. I call it restoration. My body healed slowly. My clarity didn't. Some losses teach you what you deserve to keep. If you are a woman who has spent a lifetime giving time, money, safety, please hear this. Love does not require surrender. Read what you sign, protect what you built, and never confuse silence with weakness. Age does not make you fragile. It makes you strategic. And when someone underestimates you, let them. They do their worst work when they think you're done. If this story spoke to you, share it with another woman who needs the reminder. And stay with this channel. These stories are not about revenge. They are about remembering who you are.